Hey, 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 hey. This is Coach Powell coming to you live. Trying to figure out what's going on with my internet feed. For some reason, things are not as copacetic as I would like them to be. So let me see if I can't do some different things here. And that doesn't seem to be helping a lot more. So let me try this. Well, I may switch it up a little later. Let's see, maybe I can do. Some Okay, guys, it looks like I got a really, really unstable internet connection, and I might not be able to do a whole lot about it. On my side of the world, I've been trying to improve it over the last couple of weeks, but it seems like no matter what I do, it just seems to be kind of weak. But we're going to persevere. We're going to keep the party going no matter what. Welcome to Coffee Tea You and Me. This is Coach Powell coming to you live from wonderful Centerville, Virginia, enjoying every moment that I get the chance to share, to interpret, to support the small businesses all over the world, all over the country. Those of you who are able to follow, those of you who are able to see this, hopefully you are engaged and you are doing great things. Listen, today's topic is going to be super, super, super. I'm going to need you to be absolutely engaged. And so if you are following us and you are on the chat, or you're able to, and I want to listen to this in the car, don't pull over, just keep on pushing. But if you're following us on the computer or on your cell phone and you're able to access the chat, I want you to do so. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from, name of your company, how long you've been watching the show, anything you want to say, please put it in the chat. We need this to be as popular as possible, and we need as much help as possible to make that happen. This is probably, we've been doing this for more than 2.5 years, so we're talking about well over 150 shows we've logged in, maybe close to 200, as a matter of fact, when you think about it. And I do several shows. I've got a program called, besides this one, Coffee, Tea, You and Me, every Friday at 3 o'clock. Or I come in and I bring ideas and concepts that I think are useful to all kinds of entrepreneurs and business leaders. Every once in a while, I do a program called Inside the Business Mind. And that's when I select a specific business leader and I interview them and try to use what I call my True Voice system. And the True Voice system is literally a set of questions that I learned how to ask and share with many people, thousands of people actually over the years, that I actually get into real conversation with people, so that you're entering and you're talking about things that matter, things that are meaningful, things that help create more significance and more relevance in the space of whatever it is they like to play and whatever it is they like to do. So I love True Voice as a process, and that's a trademark process that I created, but it's a way of interviewing, it's a way of asking questions, but it also primes the person who's asking the questions to really truly listen to another person. And it's a great way to start up professional relationships. If you know more about True Voice, just pay attention to what we're going to talk about today, because I'm going to get into it a little bit today. Today's specific program is all about what you need to do before you begin to build the process of making connections happen for yourself. What you need to do for yourself, the strength that you need to build in order to make your professional relationship building process that much more successful. Now, many of us, when you're out there and you're thinking about networking, right? We bumble around, we bump into people, we go into organizations, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or the Rotary Club or whatever our local business relationship organization might be. It could be an association meeting, it could be, and we just run into things and people ask us, who we are. And we bumble through, some kind of elevator pitch or some kind of personal presentation style strategy that either works or it doesn't. The key to making it all work, and the key to making it work well, is being prepared. It's super, super important that no matter what you do in the networking space, that you're prepared. Because in preparation, what tends to happen is you build a level of confidence in who you are and what you represent. And so I would tell people, before you go out looking for any type of relationship, whether that's personal or professional, it's super, super, super important that you deal with some of the reasons why most people are horrible at this. So what do I mean by that? There are 9 different obstacles that we know of. We've already proven it. We've already researched it. We've already done other studies on it that keep people from building their professional relationships. There's a lot of things that are out there. People say, well, sometimes, I don't do it because I have a lack of confidence. And sometimes I don't do it because I fear rejection from other people. And sometimes there's just a lack of self-awareness. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they bring to the table. And sometimes it's a lack of knowledge about networking. Yes, it's true. Networking is a skill set. You have to have a certain set of skills in order to be able to do it well. And not only that, you have to have systems in place to do it exceptionally well. So you can have some skills and get a little bit, in terms of distance between where you are today and where you want to be in the future. But if you master these skills and you have systems already set up that you make adjustments to and you tweak along the way, now you're in a level where you're going to be phenomenally great at networking. You're going to be receiving all the benefits. We'll talk a little bit about that later. The next thing people say is they don't necessarily have the communication skills. Again, same thing. Being able to open yourself authentically and dialogue and listen, more importantly than speak, in the networking environment is so super important. And you have to understand the reasons why and how all that stuff works. Then people will say, really can't find the right people to network with. I get that. Because everybody and their mother, especially those membership organizations like your chamber organizations or your business associations, they're clamoring for members, and they'll let pretty much anybody who can afford to be in. And they're not necessarily looking for people who have the skills to adequately perform the way they would want their members to perform. And so it's super, super important that you bring those skills to the party, no matter where you go and network, whether you're networking with a professional networking organization, or whether you're networking with an association, or whether you're networking anywhere. You want to bring a tremendous amount of skills and the right systems in place to do this well. And then you can identify the right kinds of people that you're going to network with, and you're going to find the right people to surround yourself with. Now, the last thing people will say is they don't really understand the different types of networking platforms. And I will tell you today, there are thousands more than there were even 3 years ago. Opportunities for you to engage with people, opportunities for you to connect with people, opportunities for you to avail yourself of ideas and that they would share, and ideas that you need to have shared with you. These are all things that are super, super important and very, very available and at your fingertips. Crucial, it's at your fingertips. There's so many different tools out there right now. We're going to talk about all that today. We're going to try to get through a lot of stuff. But before I get started, what I want you to do is, if you have any questions at all about what do you think you need to do to overcome some of the obstacles that I just shared with you, or questions about anything that you have about getting into the right networking opportunities or learning to develop your skills in networking, put those questions in the chat, because those things are super, super important. This internet connection is going to kill me today. And if I don't get this squared away in the next couple of weeks, I'm just going to throw the computer out. But it's so important that you are able to voice the things that you want to strengthen yourself in. So just think about it. Where do you need to develop a better skill at networking? Is it listening? Is it speaking? Is it finding the right people? Is it engaging in the right groups? Could it be that you need to get over something in yourself? Maybe there's a hesitancy, a fear that's associated with maybe not knowing where your best talents are, and if your best talents fit within the networking environments that you're trying to choose or trying to grow in. Ask any question you want. Where are you right now? When you look at your networking qualifications or your networking abilities, where are you? Are you strong in relationships? Are you in the development right now? Have you always been maybe poor at connecting with people and are conducive to creating a collaborative environment? These are all the things we want to talk about, and I need you to be honest. I need you to be honest with yourself. I need you to be honest with the group. If you got something that you want to share, put it in the chat. It's time for us to, stop hiding behind, the things that give us anxieties and fears and all those things. Now, I will tell you, when I first started really, really networking seriously, I didn't want to do it. Okay, because in my heart of heart, I am an introvert. I really like my ideas, and I really like writing, and I really like designing new programs and new strategies for people. And it's very, very hard for me to come out of sort of so when COVID hit, this was kind of heaven for me, to sit behind the screen and be able to, and not have to come out as much and not be able to engage as much. I really, really enjoyed the solitude, and I enjoyed the opportunity to sit with my ideas. However, I recognize that it is impossible for me to grow as a professional and as a leader in any area of environment if you don't actually engage with people and figure out a way to enjoy the engagement. So for me, I had to create systems. I had to create processes in order for me to feel comfortable even going out there and making connections. Now, this is super important, because when you unpack this, I unpacked it for myself. I asked myself the question, why am I afraid? Why am I hesitant? Why don't I have a lack of confidence in this thought? And it literally was because of who I am. So when you think about it, when I first started networking, I was a very young African-American financial advisor in New York City. I didn't know really a lot of people in New York City. And I wasn't really sure I was comfortable with my core skills or my organization when I first got started as a financial advisor. And so I really didn't want to go out and meet people and shake their hands and talk to them about what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. I knew I had to. And although it wasn't a requirement of my position, I understood that if I didn't, I wasn't going to be able to get to the places that I wanted to get to. So I had to figure out a way to initially get over my fear and engage with people anyway. And so I came up with a unique thing. They told me, pick up the telephone book and just start making some calls. We had, I think, a weekly Monday evening session. And I remember it's like every weekend I was afraid because I knew Monday night I was going to be on the telephone with all of my colleagues in the bullpen in our workforce organization having call night. During call night, that I was going to be asked to just call random people and try to sell them insurance and investments and any other thing that we had on the shelf that we were talking about, right? And this was scary for me because, again, I was new at the organization. And even if I had been prepared to have all the phone techniques and all the scripts and all the procedures, it didn't mean that I was comfortable with calling people at dinner time, basically, and disturbing their families and, trying to make sure. This was the day when people would actually pick up the phone when you call, right? And so I had to get over this call reluctance. And one of the ways I did it was I tried to make the process more familiar to myself. And I started with calling all of the Powells in the phone book. Now, my name is Marvin Powell, right? So I started calling all the Powells in the phone book, and I would introduce myself immediately, and I would say, this is Marvin Powell. I'm calling because I'm a local financial advisor, and I want to make sure that you know and you're prepared to anything that you need to do to be more successful. And the person would generally say, what's your name again? I say Marvin Powell. And then they would start going, well, where are you from? I said, interesting, you should ask, because I recognize your name is Powell too. So and I see that you're here from Long Island at the time, right? I was like, I hear that you're from Long Island. How long have you been in Long Island? And I get them to start talking about themselves. Pretty soon we're in a conversation, and the conversation is flowing naturally. And it's not about the product or service that I had to sell. It's about who we are as individuals, who we are. I felt much more comfortable talking about those things. And those things led me to some of the biggest deals that I could ever ask for, because I never approached it from a point of view of, I got to sell you something right now on the telephone. Because really all I was selling is the opportunity to meet with me and talk to me again in the future. I want you to stick a pin in that as we move on. So that was how I got over my initial call, my initial fear of actually engaging with new people. But I also had another fear I had to get over with, and that was when I joined my professional association, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. They had meetings that I needed to go to. I needed to go to those meetings to get my continuing education credits in my world, and I needed to go to engage, and I needed to be with other people, other professionals who were just like me. And I found I was even intimidated in that room because I was dealing with people who were much older than me. I was dealing with people who did not look like me from an ethnic or racial background point of view. And it was really unfamiliar territory for me. But I had to figure out a way to make that work for me. And so that's when I grew my beard out for the first time. And I started wearing glasses. They were fake glasses, but they were glasses. And I started wearing glasses to look older, make me look smarter, make me look like I was more, established. And then I felt more comfortable in myself. And when I would engage organizations, I felt like, I was showing up as a person who was worthy of the attention of others, and so on and so forth. And then I realized that I was accepted just like all the rest of the guys. But I had to get over my initial fear, because everybody was there trying to get their CE credits, trying to pay attention to this boring information that was being shared. And I already know this stuff. It's not really anything interesting or fascinating to me. How do I So I used to do exactly what when I was in class, when I was in high school and in college. I would do my best to sit up front, I'd take copious notes, I would pay attention, I would engage with the professor, and I would make sure that I asked questions when it was appropriate, right? It was time to ask questions. I asked questions because it was super important for me to feel like I belonged in the room, and I felt like I belonged in the room if I was actually engaged in the room and actually doing things. People would come up to me afterwards and say, "Hey, it looks like you're pretty smart. Did you get an answer to that question of so and so? Or when you asked that question, or what do you think?" Now we have a conversation about what we learned in the classroom. That's why it's super important that I showed up in the classroom as a leader. Right? Super important. Think about that. That made me, again, gave me confidence in who I was and what I represented in the industry and in my profession. That helped me because I truly got engaged. So I'm asking you today, get engaged, ask questions, think about who you are in the space. How are you going to over your fear of networking? If you haven't gotten over your fear of networking, what is the base of that fear? Ask yourself the question, where did this come from? How did you get there? For me, I was young. I was African American. I was in a different space. I didn't know anybody. I certainly wasn't a city person. I didn't consider myself what they call it, a Manhattanite, right? So it was a different world for me. And so I was uncomfortable because it was a whole different world for me. But I had to do what I needed to do to find ways to make myself comfortable. That's lesson number one in getting over your fear. The next thing you got to do is get over your fear. You got to show up and have done your homework. If you know what you're talking about, what you bring to the table and what you're able to do, amen, it's so much better. I once showed up to a pitch where I was pitching an opportunity to take over one of the New York City pension plans, I think it was for transportation. I can't even remember. It was way over 20 years ago. But I was nowhere near qualified to take over that pension. I happened to talk myself into getting the pitch because one of the shop stewards of the local union fell in love with me and just liked me and said, "You didn't do that." But I realized that I was outclassed, outranked, out-titled, I had no ability to really get that work. But here I was pitching in front of the whole tribunal of the New York Transit Authority pension planning organization, right? So I'm like, okay, how do I do this? And how do I make myself comfortable? And I couldn't. So I fumbled. Yes, I did. And I looked like an idiot. I know I looked like an idiot. And so I promised myself I'd never do that again. I'd never go into another event, another meeting, another place, another space where I felt uncomfortable because I didn't do my homework. Once I learned that strategy and I realized that every time I go into a new space or new place, I need to do my homework. I need to find out who the leaders are there. I need to find out what the topic of the day is going to be. I need to find out, the environment, as much as I can about the environment that we're going to go into, what kind of audience is going to show up, who the people regularly are there and what they are used to seeing, and what's going to be something interesting that I might add based on my knowledge and my experience to the room that maybe they haven't seen or heard of before. Because when you show up to a new place, you got to show up differently in a way that helps people see or be or understand something differently. When you don't, then it's the same old, and it's easy to ignore that. It's easy to ignore the person who is, so dialed into the formula of what things have gone on before that they don't do anything that's novel or interesting or new. And so therefore, they're not as interesting as a person the person doesn't want to talk to you. So I wear this Howard baseball cap with me almost everywhere, even today, and I'm not an alum of Howard, but it makes for great conversation. Because people ask me all the time, what is Howard? What that's all about? And I get to tell them. I get to tell them about something that I want to talk about versus whatever it is that what's going on today. It's a way of making small talk, but important talk that's meaningful to me. And I'm against small talk, and maybe if you want to know, I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But so super important, again, that you get over your fears, and you have to do whatever you need to do to get over your fears. The next thing you got to get over is, that fear of rejection. What I won't belong. I don't belong. I don't fit. This isn't a worthy opportunity for me. So first of all, if that's absolutely true because you've done your homework and assessed that, don't go. You don't want to show up to a place that you just naturally are not going to fit in and you already know it. but you must, right? You can't just reject an opportunity just out of your own fear. Do your homework. Find out somebody invited you to something that you're not quite sure about it is. Find out what it is. Find out it's a cost. Find out if there's a food issue that you have to be careful about. Find out if there are people there that are going to feel some kind of animosity towards you being there. You know, and if there are they leaders in the room? Because the leaders in the room kind of dictate the pace of what's going on. If they're just like bit players, maybe you don't care. If there's a greater opportunity for you to connect and to create something that you want to create in your network, in your inner circle, you have to be able to analyze those things. What do I need in my network? Can I possibly get something that's going to give me what I need from this group? And if that possibility is high, because again, you've done your homework, you've done your analysis, you've looked at it, then you go for it. If that possibility is low, don't waste your time, because you don't want to show up someplace that you think you should show up in, but also come back with egg on your face because you really didn't do your homework well enough. You really didn't look well enough. Again, I'm going to come back to the homework thought a lot, because doing your homework makes you comfortable. Doing your homework gets you over whatever fears you may have. And trust me, just because you might be an introvert or an extrovert doesn't mean you have more or less fear in a social situation. It just means you're handling it different. And even if you're handling it differently, it doesn't mean you're handling it well. Because well is about quality, it's not about quantity. It's not about, how much you feel comfortable in yourself and how much you love yourself and how much you love other people. That has nothing to do with the quality of your interaction. It has something to do with the quality of your personality and what you bring to it. But it's how someone receives that is about how they receive that. It's not about you. It's about them. That brings me to the third thing that people say, I don't really know enough. They don't really say that, but it shows in how they present themselves. They don't really know enough about themselves and what they bring to the table to have the kind of confidence that they need to have. And that's super important. You got to spend the time with you. You got to do that homework. You got to do what, Ayanla says, she always says, do the work, right? It's super, super important that you do the self-assessment, that you really do 360 arrangements for people that you're working with. Begin to really think about where where you are in terms of what you bring to the table. And that's a great question. That brings you to a question that Nancy just asked. And this one is great. Right? Is there a difference in how a person should approach an elevator pitch in a Zoom meeting versus in person? And the answer is absolutely. Every environment is different, whether it's an online environment or a personal environment or business. And the questions that you need to ask, though, to assess that environment are always the same. Can I be understood? Do I have people's attention? Do I have something that is attention worthy of this audience? Just as you have something that you want to say, doesn't mean that this audience needs to hear it or would find it interesting or exciting. And so you have to really do your homework again about the audience. Who are the people that attend this meeting on a regular, consistent basis? What are their expectations? What are they growing used to? Where can you shake them up a little bit and get them into something new? And you can't know this until you talk to the leaders, until you assess the organization, until you maybe try it out and do kind of low key, sit in the background, don't very much the first time you go, because you're taking notes or you're learning, but you don't want to say anything that's going to be untoward or anything that's going to embarrass you or make you have a negative reputation at some point, right? So you want to make sure you keep that tight. And the best way to do that is to not give away too much of who you are, what you're about. As an introvert, that always works for me, right? Because I want to sit back and I want to kind of really analyze and kind of get the lay of the land before I engage too much, before I give away too much, right? And what you never want to, no matter what environment, whether it's online or personal, you never want to show up as a person who's like, blah, 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 and I do this, and I do that, and I do this. Don't show up with a laundry list. Because if you show up with a laundry list of things that you want to talk about, that's really too much. We can't hang on to it. Sensory, emotionally, we can only hang on to one or two key ideas, and you want to let it go at that. If you can get down to one idea, one concept, one story that illustrates that one key idea, that one key thought that you want to illustrate, do that. It's better that you do that than try to satisfy everyone in the room, right? There's somebody specifically that you need to talk to, and you need to say the right thing to them so they can hear you, and so that they can respond. And they need to hear in your patient or whatever you need. They need to hear themselves. They need to hear that this is for them. This is something they should pay attention to because of their situation, because of what they know, because of who they are. And if you've done your homework, you know exactly what to say and the right bells in the group. And if you don't, then you're not ready yet. Don't make pitch. Don't make the ask if you're not sure who's going to be hearing it and what they're going to say. That I would say, you can get over that fear of rejection by knowing you're saying the right things at the right time, at the right pace, and the right level to the right people. And then you don't have to worry about rejection because they're not going to reject it. It's like asking a 4-year-old who loves ice cream and you already knows ice cream, would you like some ice cream? What are they going to say? No, I don't want the ice cream because mom says it's bad for me. No. They're going to say yes because they already have a natural inclination to do so. That's what you want to do. You want to catch people in a situation where they say yes because they don't know how to say anything else to what you're offering or what you're bringing to the table or what you're making a promise to. And that brings me to the next thing that people are naturally kind of fearful of. It's their knowledge of networking. Masterful networkers know that it's important to make a promise. It is important to dial up whatever strengths you have, whatever passions you have, whatever gifts that you bring to the table. It's important for you to lay that out there, make a promise to deliver on that, whatever that is. And so what I've become accustomed to doing is I know I suck at networking, right? I've become accustomed to doing it in rooms that I get attention. I will say, listen, I have created literally a masterful piece of information that you can really read quickly to learn how to give the pitch perfect elevator speech every single time, no matter what environment that you're in. But if you understand how to do this and you run through the paces and you go through the process of understanding this quick little study guide, I promise you, you're going to be a masterful networker if that's something that you desire. Would that be something that you'd like for me to give to you if I could? People who say no to that, first of all, I've never heard anyone say no to that. But second of all, if someone does say no to that, I recognize that they truly are so full of themselves that they believe that they don't need any help. And sometimes people go, that's funny, you should offer that to me. Is it something about my presentation or something that you think I should use tweaking? And I would say, everybody could use some tweaking. It just happens to be something I'm very, very good at and something I know a lot about. And I'm sharing this document. I love to share with you. More importantly, I love to get your feedback on it because I'm always improving. The version I'm going to share with you is like version 27. This is not the first one. And every time I get a chance, every year, in fact, I update it and I rewrite it and I come up with a more updated version based on what people are doing and saying and thinking now. So I really like your feedback, and that would help me improve it as I begin to train and teach others how to be more masterful networkers. Most people love that and they accept that. And now what I've set up, I made a promise to share with somebody something that they really want that could be helpful to them. And then I have an opportunity to follow up with them because they promised me they're going to give me their feedback. That was the condition upon which I'm willing to share the information. I'm not going to share the information without the promise to get the feedback. Notice how I'm secure an opportunity to follow up and follow through with whatever I'm doing with them to create the next iteration of whatever it is outside of this moment right here. In fact, if any of you would like to read the current edition of the 5 Elements of Perfect Presentation and you'd like to have it, all you gotta do is ask me for it and I'll get it to you. Tell me, give me a call. My text message is rolling across the screen right now, and I will send it to you directly from my phone. But now what am I going to ask you to do? I'm going to ask you to actually pay attention and give me an opportunity to follow up and get some feedback from you. Again, for the same reasons. It makes me better to get feedback from other people about what it is. And also, when people read this, they find out a little bit more about me, who I am, what I bring to the table, how I think. And it shortcuts a lot of the drama associated with getting to know someone or figuring out what you can depend on them for, because I'm making promises, I'm keeping my promises. I'm following up. I'm creating an opportunity, an atmosphere for other people to do the same. Folks, that's what trust building is all about. It's about making connections and creating collaborative partnerships and doing that in a masterful way. I got tons of other systems that I could teach you about, and I'm teaching you about in further talks about this particular topic. But before you get started, you have to have this kind of stuff worked out, so that when you offer, when you make a thought about it, it's not, you know, I'm not sure, I'm not positive about how it's going to go. I already know how it's going to go. I already know what the person's going to say. I already heard it 1,000 different times in 1,000 different ways, and it's not going to be anything new to me or unfamiliar with me. So it's a part of my system that I've practiced, that I've created, that I've generated. If you don't get what I'm saying, that the networking is a skill, keep paying attention and you'll learn what I'm talking about. Some people are uncomfortable with networking. They're uncomfortable with it because, again, there's too many unanswered questions. When you're meeting new people, the opportunities are endless, because you never know what this person is talking about, where this person is coming from, what you might expect from that person, what they might want from you. You never know, but you've got to engage in order to figure that out. And so what people have a problem with is they have a problem with mostly is people making them offers that they're not ready to accept, or they don't want to accept for whatever reasons. And so that makes them kind of like shut down any new information that's coming into the universe and into the world, because it's really how your brain works and how you focus. And we're not going to get into the neuroscience of all of this, but understand that you can't say yes to everything. So you have to be discriminative, and you have to be able to, because you want to say yes to the things that make sense for you to say yes to, and no to the things that make sense for you to say no to. But what you cannot stop is the avalanche of opportunities that are going to come in your way through your email box, your telephone, through your text messages, through your personal interactions with other people. People are going to make you offers. Now, you know, who's brilliant at this? I got to tell you, most women. Most women are brilliant at this because they get offers they don't want to take up on all the time. And they have to learn how to gracefully, kind of buffet, pivot, and get out of that conversation into another conversation that's more interesting to them. I will tell you, it's very hard for people to make an offer to me without realizing while they're making an offer that this is not going to work out. Because usually before they've made an offer to me, they've heard enough and understood enough about me to realize I don't need or want whatever they're about to try to sell me. And so they don't waste their time. We start talking about things that are relevant to both of us instead of just relevant to one or the other of us. Because that's where I want to be. I want to be in a mutuality situation. I don't want to be in a victim situation where somebody's pouncing on me with their offer or their temptation or whatever there is. And I don't want to be in a bullish situation where I'm doing the same. I want to be in a situation where there is respect and there is dignity in what and how we're talking to each other for, with, and about. And when that environment doesn't exist, then I'm going to reject. I'm going to reject the environment, not the person. Right? I'm going to make sure I inject into the environment what I need to put into the environment to make the environment a collaboration-friendly environment. Right? I'm not going to try to cut another person off or make them feel bad about who they are. I am going to try to gently remind them that this is the environment that I like to play in. Right? And I might set them a scenario where people are finding ways to work together collaborative on something that's going to be useful for both of them. So if you're trying to offer me something or trying to talk to you about something right now, is it good for both of us? And if you can demonstrate how it's good for both of us, or share with me how it might be good for both of us, then let's talk about it. But if it's just good for you and you're not even sure if I need or want it, why are we talking about it? Let's talk about how you get to that level of assurance. That's how you get to that level of talking about whatever you want to talk to me about that's beneficial to both of us. That's called benefit selling. And that's, again, a whole nother practice, which I can teach you how to do, again, another later time. But if you don't know how to talk about the benefits over the features of what you're offering, you're not a good salesperson yet. It doesn't mean that you can't be. It just means you have to learn how to tell better stories. You have to learn how to talk about, why the product is so beneficial. And you need to have 2 or 3 ideas really quickly off the top of your head about each feature of the product and why each feature is beneficial. If you don't have that at the ready and you can't talk about it at the ready, you're not ready to even represent the product correctly. You go back to product development school and learn how to do that and learn how to speak to the qualities of what you offer, not what you offer. That's a whole different conversation. Hopefully we'll get into a little bit later. Inadequate communication skills. That's one of the biggest things that people have that keeps them from networking. And it's true. If you don't know how to speak the King's English, right, and you're in a space where that's what they speak, it's not going to work well for you, because you're not going to be able to connect and communicate collaboratively with other people. When I say communicate collaboratively, what I'm saying is being such a common connection that people feel like you belong to them and they belong to you, and you should be doing things together. That's the environment that you have to try to create if you're a networker, because you want people to feel comfortable laying out literally all of the time and the things that they need, that they have available to you, as well as you do the same to them. Now, another question you have out there is who's on first, right? Who shows up first as authentically and as with enough gifts and talent as they use as can? And I will tell you, the bold and the brave, the person who is in charge of themselves, shows up right away with the time, talent, and treasure that they have to offer other people. And they give other people the opportunity to get on board what they're bringing to the table. Showing up last is showing up least. Showing up first is a matter of practice of faith. It is a matter of practice of confidence. And when people see you as confident, they will read you as competent. Let me say that again. When you show up with confidence, people assume that you are competent. And then you need them to know that you're competent, or they won't trust you. You get the math and the mechanics of that. You know, when you don't have trust, you have nothing with people. You can talk all day about the weather and the sports analogies and the things that you did in your past and the wonderful, glorious opportunities you may have for your future. But if people don't trust, they're not going to work with you. They're not going to want to collaborate with you. They have very low expectations of you. And if you're in an environment where people have low expectations of you and you have high expectations of them, guess what? There's a mismatch. There's an imbalance. There is a lack of alignment in that space, in that universe, and you want to create alignment. And so you have to show up authentically with everything that you have, not offering everything you have, but certainly offering the best that you have in terms of your character, not your product or service, who you are. This is what I'm talking about. Now, hopefully you all get this. It's super, super, super important. And I think Nancy, I know what she's talking about here. Time, talent, and Marvin is expert describing this when you're prospecting during networking. If you see he announces the topic, sign up. Yes, this is true. I actually have a sales program that I have called the 100% closing ratio. I created this thing years ago, and I keep updating it. And it really helps people understand how to get to yes often with as many people as possible. In fact, if you do this well, you will have a 100% closing ratio. Well, let me not stop lying. You're not really going to have a 100% closing ratio, but you're going to have pretty close to a 100% closing ratio. And that is super, super special enough, right? It's so important that, you hone those skills, those networking skills, because you want to be able to walk into any room and knock it out of the park. And if you pay attention to what I'm going to talk to you about over the next couple of weeks, you will be that person. And I'm not going to shortcut anything. I'm not going to leave anything on the table. We're going to talk about how you build magical connections with people and how you sustain those connections over time. It is so important to your personal and your professional development. Not sharing it with you would be a sin, and I cannot do it. So I'm going to teach you all the aspects of creating a magical network. because we all have to have one. If you want to be successful and happy, fulfilled, think you can do it all by yourself without people, you losing your mind. It can't happen. That means you're gonna have to have the confidence. You have to get over your fear of rejection. You have to do something about it to make that to tamper that down, not to eliminate it. You're always gonna have some fear, right? But you have to move forward anyway. If you have the confidence in your systems and your tools to move forward in any way, you have to find the right people to network with. It's super, super important. Learn how to tag team a networking approach with somebody else who maybe have more experience or may know more people in the room that you're in. You have to create those relationships before you create the bigger relationships. And so make sure that if you have a current network, you're fully tapped into the current network. You don't know who where, but let me give you a tip. LinkedIn does, because you can look at all your friends on LinkedIn. I use this tool all the time. You can look at all of your friends on LinkedIn, and then you could literally see who your friends are already connected with that you might want to know. I could take a LinkedIn profile of my favorite friends, and I recognize that my boy Kevin Williams is looking at this right now. I can look at his LinkedIn profile, go through his and look at his profile and go, okay, who knows Kevin that I know? And then I can sort that information. Who's the CEO of a company that Kevin knows? And I can say, okay, these are the list of CEOs that Kevin knows. Of all the people that Kevin knows who are CEOs of their own company, is there anybody there that I would really like to meet? And then I can ask Kevin personally, one-to-one, Kevin, I want to meet this person right here who's in your network. What is the smartest way for us to make that happen? I hope you got that, folks. This is a magical technique. When you ask someone that you already know, what is the smartest way for me to get to know this person that you already have in your network? You'll open up the door for the magic to happen. Because what you're doing is you're giving someone else an opportunity to help you make a connection that's going to be meaningful to you. And because all of us want to do meaningful things, we all want to be significant, relevant. We all want to do what I call the MRS, right? We want to be meaningful, relevant, and significant. Right? We want to all earn our MRS degree from everybody that we get a chance to interact with and work with. We want to show up. You're giving someone an opportunity to show up. You're giving someone an opportunity to be something great to you when you just ask for their help. Our networker today is not just genius at doing what they do. They're genius at asking for help, and they do it all the time. They do it exceptionally well, and they make sure that that's a part of their systems. Asking for help should be your regular everyday thing. You should be thinking, who should I be asking for help today, and who should I be connecting to, and again, who should I be helping also? Now, super, super important. Remember, I told you this. You cannot be willing to ask somebody else to give a contribution to you if you're not willing and have already given contributions to them. And so, and this is not, by the way, there's a tip I'm going to give you again, another tip. Don't do it this way. Don't ask people in general, what can I do for you? Because they're not sitting around already thinking about what you can do for them. Those who are masterful at this, they are. But most people are not sitting around thinking what you can do for them. And if you put them on the spot and ask them, what can I do to help you? You're going to throw them into a little bit of an anxiety, a little bit of panic. You don't want that. You want to say instead, listen, I like to sit with you and talk to you and collaborate with you and come up with ways that I think that I might be of amazing and meaningful help to you. I don't know what those ways are right now, and maybe you either, but I think if we just have a brief discussion over coffee or something, we can work that out. Would you be willing to do that with me? Now, again, you're making a promise. that you're going to follow up on. And you can't say, I want to meet you and not be ready to meet you. So you got to have your tools ready, right? If that your calendar has to be ready, you have to know what your schedule is looking like and be willing to commit and then follow through on that commitment. And so do they, by the way. If you force somebody to make a meeting with you, you got it all wrapped up in your calendar, but don't make sure they have it in their calendar, shame on you. All right. That is a non-professional way of approaching your network. It's not doing you any good to have appointments in your calendar that people are not going to honor. They're not going to step through with. It's not helping you. In fact, you're going to show up on that day, or you're going to be ready to go, and they're going to call you and say, oh, I'm sorry, I never really got this in my calendar, or I forgot it altogether. So can we do it another time? If you don't make it important and significant and relevant, it's not going to happen. You depend that it's not going to happen. In fact, if you move into a meeting with somebody and they don't even have an agenda for the meeting or a reason for the meeting, you can guarantee you got a whole bunch of youthful fumbling you got to go through in order to get to the good stuff. You don't want to wait. You want to get that squared away before you make the meeting. Listen, I want to talk to you about something super important. It's going to help you both. Hopefully, it's going to help both of us to move forward in our careers and our lives and businesses. And if it doesn't help us both, I don't want to do it. And so this is a serious meeting I want to have with you. I want to talk to you about how we can collaborate, how we can come together. And if they know that this is what your agenda is, this is what you're in. It's not about winning for you. It's not about winning for them. It's about a mutuality and a reciprocity, right? Then it becomes something that's much more powerful. Because in truth, we all can do things better together than we can do apart. I set up this wonderful opportunity called the Leverage Up Conference. And I have accumulated people and opportunities with people that I couldn't even imagine that was possible when I got started. But it has grown into something so powerful and so special for my panelists, for the people who get involved and engage with the program. It's grown to be so good. The first couple of times I did it, I realized I was fumbling through trying to make something happen, but people realized the intention of my heart. They gave me the bit of patience, and they allowed me to improve and make things better. And I got to tell you, I'm super, super happy. I can't wait to deliver the next program on the 29th of April. And I'm so looking forward to making it even better, because I now have a different vision that's bigger than the one that I originally had, because of the feedback I've gotten from so many participants, and so many people have engaged so well and so caringly. I can't say anything more about it. If you haven't gotten your Leverage Up ticket already, you need to get it, because they're on sale right now, and they're deeply discounted. They don't cost you a whole lot of money, but you're going to get a whole lot of benefit out of it. This I can promise without question. I'm gonna copy the link and post it in the chat for everybody who wants to get the Leverage Up tickets. Coming up on the 29th of April, that's a Saturday. You definitely want to get your tickets. You don't want to wait. You don't want to hold back. You don't want to, you don't want to be the last ones at the show, because then again, the price is gonna go up in a couple of weeks. And so you want to get to while it's at the low price of just $49. So you want to make sure you do that. Is there anything more I want to tell you about networking today? Let me see if I got everything there. The different working platforms. I can tell you there's thousands of networking platforms. There's Meetup, there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's all kinds of different social groups and social things that I'm getting online as well as in person. People coming back to more in-person meetings. All of them are useful as long as you show up with your skills. If you show up with your skills, you can network anywhere. You can go to a 2-year-old's birthday party and come up with more opportunities for people. But again, same thing. Know what you have to offer. Know who you are. Make sure that you practice in real world environment. Get some real time feedback about how you're showing up, so that you know that you're showing up the way you want to show up, not just the brand that you have, not just the brand that you dream of, but actually doing it. And you want to get feedback from your real network, the people that you're already working with, and ask them, how do you see me? I get referrals and recommendations from people all the time, and they tell me, I always ask them, Why did you do this for me? Why did you give? Why do you think of me this way? What did I do specifically that made you do that or made you feel this way? And guess what? They tell me, and it helps me again. It builds my confidence. That's true. Helps me get the feedback that I need to get. So I recognize that, what I'm putting out there is being received in a way that I think is positive and useful. And I don't have questions about that. I know that I'm bringing the good stuff. And so I make sure that, I show up authentically everywhere, all the time, face to face, in video, in my family, everywhere I am. And guess what? I keep getting the results. It's being more positive than I can ever imagine. And I have to continue to expand my scope. Super, super important, guys. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. Today's program, we're in minute 55. I want to make sure I close down so I have an opportunity to share this. If you have an opportunity to share it, please do. Please share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are, wherever you connect. Go ahead and cut and paste the link and share it with as many people as you possibly can, because we need to get the word out. We need to tell people, because these next series of events, we're going to be getting into deeper. How do you do this? How do you identify people that you're going to network with? How do you bring them into your inner circle? And how do you keep them there? This is Coach Powell. I love each and every one of you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for showing out, being the person that you are. I can't think of anything greater I would rather do on a Friday afternoon, and I'm glad you decided to share this time with me. Again, this is Coach Powell signing out. Out of here.